scope of this collection is all woodwind instruments, which takes into account those from different cultures and time periods from all around the world, such as single reed end-blown instruments like the saxophone, end-blown fiddle flutes like the shakuhachi, as well as double reed instruments from such diverse areas as Greece and Africa.
Fundamentally, instruments are tools made up of certain materials which can produce specific sounds, and can therefore be categorized by a schema such as cataloging cultural objects. Current musical catalogs focus more on sheet music or orchestration, not necessarily musical instruments. And those past catalogs that do revolve around instruments have centered around personal collections, such as the Montova family of Padua's inventory of instruments, which were cataloged based on where those instruments were stored. One key cataloging system for musical instruments is the Hornbostel sax system, which goes solely by physical characteristics of the instruments. This eliminates the necessity for talking about different musical systems and keys, making a much more thorough and concise system for cataloging. However, this system cannot be used as a schema, as it is not an elements-based descriptive resource. The history of instruments and their development are directly tied to the continuing development of music and musical history. For instance, the history of the saxophone begins in Belgium in 1846, where it was created as a louder and more durable woodwind alternative for outdoor bands. However, major use of the saxophone didn't occur until the 1920s, aka the Jazz Age, where it was put to use by American musicians. Many instruments carry cultural or symbolic meanings. For instance, flutes in Western art often appear as shorthand phallic symbols. In Native American cultures, such as the Lakota and the Hopi, the flute is associated with fertility, sexuality, and romance, such as in the Hopi god of fertility, Kokopelli. As noted by Sasser, for metadata to be effective, it needs to be geared towards two groups: researchers intentionally accessing online music collections, as well as users who may be seeking any number of things, and who find the online collections through internet searching. With that in mind, we concluded that the users best served by our schema would be, for instance, composers, instrumentalists, musical historians, musical anthropologists, musicians, and casual music fans. Current research on the behavior of musical catalog users has shown that known item searching is the most popular method of browsing in music catalogs. However, further research shows that instrumentalists, composers, and conductors are actually most likely to use subject searching, which was more relevant for our project. Search entry points preferred by users have been shown to include composer, genre, instrumentation, edition, historical scholarly, and use of period instruments, all elements which we considered while creating our schema.
Woodwind instruments are grouped by the features overblown, end-blown, single reed, double reed, and free reed. The four major groups of the modern orchestral woodwind section are flute, clarinet, oboe, and bassoons, and subsections of these primary categories. They are all still considered cultural artifacts, having evolved from cultural manifestations in various regions around the world. Most of the woodwinds in current use are from modern Western cultures, though their roots may be from otherworldly regions. Modern woodwind instruments are divided into categories. The overblown woodwind instruments are the flute family. End-blown woodwinds are fiddle flutes, such as recorders. Single reed instruments are instruments such as clarinets and saxophones. Double reed instruments such as the oboe and bassoon, and free reeds such as harmonicas and pipe organs. That's right, pipe organs are woodwinds. Note the similarity to the panpipes as well. CCO guidelines define cultural artifacts as physical objects produced or shaped by human craft, especially tools, weapons, ornaments, or other items that inherently give cultural clues about the person and culture who made or used them. So all musical instruments can be classified as cultural artifacts. For the purposes of organization, the instruments designated here as cultural artifacts will be those that represent a specific cultural history and are distinctively originating from specific regions. The categories of cultural woodwind artifacts are divided by region, such as the Americas with the Hopi flute, the Arabic region with the arghul, Australia with the didgeridoo, Chinese with the kudi and zun, Eastern Europe with the shivi and duduk, European with the panpipes and the jim's horn and the shawm, Indian with the bansuri and the shinai and the nadaswaram, Japanese with the sho and the shakuhachi, Korea with the danso, Philippines with the suling and the tompong. The Anasazi flute, one of the American instruments, is among the oldest known woodwinds. Discovered in 1931, it has been carefully replicated by modern instrument makers and is back in current use again today.
Contrary to popular perception, not all woodwinds are made of wood. The woodwind is classified as an instrument whose sound comes from the vibration of air inside the instrument. This differs from brass instruments, whose sound is created by the vibration of a player's lip vibrations. The woodwind instruments are most commonly made from metals, organics, and synthetics. The most common metal for instruments such as the flute would be silver alloys, usually silver and nickel together. Organic instruments are commonly made from bamboo. The reeds are made from cane, and wood is still the most common for many oboes and clarinets and bassoons. Synthetic is common for more modern instruments, especially student instruments. Rubber is becoming very common. Many reeds are made from silicone instead of cane. And high quality plastics such as ABS resin is used to make a lot of water-resistant instruments such as clarinets and oboes. We chose to use cataloging cultural objects metadata schema system because it was the most flexible with object materials. Some other reasons we chose CCO is it is tested, reviewed, and accepted as the standard for the cultural heritage community. The CCO elements and rules for cataloging is based on existing best practices for the field of cultural heritage. CCO is intended for a diversity of audiences and institutions, such as repositories, public libraries, and museums. The element schemas provide minimal descriptions for basic cataloging of physical objects. This allows the CCO to be combined with another repository system. And the purpose of our collection meets both the cultural and materials aspects of this cataloging organizational schema. The CCO Metadata Elements database is intended to provide descriptive features to the objects or materials located in a repository collection. Some of these descriptive features include descriptions of the item, the creator and their role, the original location and current location, styles and cultural information, and schematic information such as measurements,
materials, and techniques. An example of a modern instrument schema would be for the example of the oboe, which is an instrument. Some of the interesting points are that they are mostly made of black woods from the African rainforests. Many student models are made of resin to avoid cracking. And experts don't always share their information about dimension, size, and aperture because they are very personalized to the maker. Many professional players will make their reeds by hand. Other information included in the schema is information on location and description. For example, the oboe was created in Greece and is now commonly used throughout Europe and America.
The cultural artifact, the Nadaswaram, for example, is a South Indian instrument. The measurements are 87 centimeters. It's a double reed instrument made of a hardwood, and it has 7 finger holes for the diatonic scale. The Nadaswaram is a key musical instrument played in almost all Hindu weddings and temples of the South Indian tradition, usually played in pairs and accompanied by a pair of drums called tabla. Each part of the Nadaswaram, in fact, is related to a deity. The bottom circle is devoted to Surya, the sun god, the upper hole to the goddess Shakti, the inner holes to Lord Vishnu, and the body to Lord Brahma, and the 7 holes to 7 mothers.
And here's the list of the references we found during our research. And that concludes our Woodwind instrumental schema. Thank you for listening.